Hello everybody, it's wonderful to be here today and I'm extremely excited. I had my very first job, I was a data miner because data science wasn't coined as a term, and seriously my parents still don't know what I do. So I've been waiting more than 25 years for this, and I really want to talk about the fact that AI, we're beyond hype, and the reason we're beyond hype are for three main reasons. The first is the fact that we finally have compute. So we have the compute to do the parallel processing. So that's no longer a barrier for AI, like it was for someone like Alan Turing way back when, who I personally consider as the godfather of AI. The second is machines are better in most things, or if not very close to being better in a lot of things that humans can do. And finally, most importantly, when ChatGPT got released, somebody finally put a really good UX on AI, and that shifted the dial from it being a push from tech and from data science from a pull from the business. So I'm really excited about having the opportunity to ask these four amazing people some questions. So with me today, and I'm just going to tell you who they are, and then I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves, because if I was left to do it, I would spend the whole panel just introducing them, because they're so amazing. So firstly, we have Chris, who is from Microsoft, representing our vendors. Next, we have Professor Marianne Williams, who is an innovator, academic, and also AI specialist. Then we have Libby, who is our AI entrepreneur. And finally, representing the sort of larger end of the insurance industry, we have Craig. So, Chris, give us a brief introduction. Tell us about you.
Quick summary. I don't know if my mic is working. Oh, it is. Excellent. So very quickly, Chris Modica. I'm a regional CTO here at Microsoft Australia New Zealand, and I'm dedicated to the financial services industry. Yeah, it's not working. That's right.
What did you do?
Nothing.
Come closer.
It's fine. Hey, there you go. Chris Modica. I'm a regional CTO here at Microsoft Australia New Zealand. Dedicated to the financial services industry. So I work directly with customers and our corporate engineering team, and pretty much since the moment of AI, fundamentally transforming our industry, which we'll get into in a bit. So that's me.
Marianne.
Yeah, so I'm really excited to be here and looking forward to your questions during the panel and afterwards. I'm the Michael J. Crouch Chair for Innovation at UNSW, and I lead the UNSW Business AI Lab, where we focus on measuring the ROI of AI.
Libby.
Is my mic on? Yeah. I'm Libby Roberts. I'm a psychologist by training. I've worked in the workers' compensation, personal injury schemes around the country for about 25 years. And I've started a business called LeapForward, which we essentially design, build and operationalise digital interventions for mental health and physical well-being to help people recover faster and come off claim quicker.
Craig?
Okay, my name's Craig Price. I lead Suncorp's Data Science and AI Centre of Expertise. My professional background is as a data science actuary, and I'm lucky enough to manage a bunch of data scientists and machine learning engineers, and our remit is to go across Suncorp's business units, work with business leaders around how can AI accelerate their business goals. We get to then prototype with the business units, and if there's value, we have the ability to take that then to a productionized solution. So that's a really interesting role to be part of.
Thank you. So as you can see, really great lineup of people to answer some questions. So my first question's an easy one, or maybe not so easy. In one word, Craig, we're going to start with you. How would you describe the future of AI in insurance?
Well, I thought I'd better, eat our own dog food here, so I put it into ChatGPT. And as you can imagine, ChatGPT's first answer is a bit, maybe a little bit beige, because it's going to go probabilistically for what most people say. So it went for transformative, but I did do a follow-up, and it's the one that I like better personally, which is how would customers see the AI revolution? And it came back with the word empowering, and I actually like that, because what we're hoping through all the automation and the augmentation is that from an insurance point of view, our staff members are going to be able to get rid of that kind of boring, annoying, finding information and trying to read through endless documents and get to the answers they need to give better customer service.
Great answer. And Libby, if you had one word, what would it be?
Well, I also put it into ChatGPT.
Oh.
But I am going to go with disruptive because, I think there's so much potential for it to be positively disruptive.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's 2 words.
Well, I resisted the temptation to use ChatGPT, and I came up with exhilarating because it's the intersection of fear and excitement.
I didn't use ChatGPT either. I'm going to go with efficiency because I do think technology is always an enabler, but for me, this particular innovation has significant opportunity to improve the dial on efficiency.
I think they're all really interesting one-word answers. I thought about it myself. For me, it's finally.
Yes.
Finally we're here. So to bring this to life, Libby, I'm just going to ask you a question because you basically built a company that is foundational. AI is such an integral part of it. So can you just explain why you decided to go down this AI path with your startup and how important is it?
Well, I mean, it's accelerated significantly since ChatGPT came onto the scene, in 2022. So before that, we'd been doing lots of experiments ourselves and, inching ahead slowly. So I had this vision that AI had the potential to really make a huge difference and scale what I'd been doing for 25 years face to face with my clients. And so we've built this AI chatbot who we've now been able to train using AI and constrain using AI and also then monitor the responses from the chatbot using AI. And it's really made a huge difference to the way we can deliver our program to our customers.
That's very exciting. And Marianne, what else are you seeing from an insurance perspective in terms of AI and innovation?
Well, it's a really moving space. I mean, there's a lot of really exciting work in healthcare, in robotics and weather. And sort of the big advances have been around just being able to integrate and exploit multimodal data, from the Internet of Things, from cars, from robots, and from sensor networks. And then another big step is in simulation, the kinds of models that we can build using real-time data. And the big one there is weather, because we know that weather affects a lot of aspects of insurance pricing. And AI models now outperform the sort of traditional physics-based models, which are really sophisticated and really good. But over the summer, we've all realized that, hey, those models don't seem to work so well anymore. And this is where generative AI is super powerful, because it's not just finding patterns in the past. It's not really going to help us predict weather in the future, right? It's able to generate new kinds of patterns and new models, right? Which you can then test, because you can measure the weather. And then the other area is in experimentation, test beds. I mean, that was mentioned in the previous talk, sandboxes and things. Generative AI is very, very powerful, allowing you to test ideas rapidly and hundreds of ideas, thousands of ideas all simultaneously. And I think the other area that's really important to keep your eye on is explainable AI, because there's been really big advances there. It used to be, if something kind of goes wrong or you don't get the recommendation you want, you're kind of told what the parameters might be that influence that recommendation or decision. But now we can identify real actionable insights for both business and customers to use to change the recommendation. What do they need to do over the next 6 months to actually drive their premiums down or up, whichever side of the coin you're on?
So you're talking a little bit about explainability, and I know that is certainly being signalled as one of the key areas that regulation is going. And if you hadn't heard, the EU unanimously voted to pass their legislation. There's a few big dates coming up in the EU, and it's going to impact the whole world, because if wherever the AI is built or developed, if it's used inside the EU, it needs to comply. So Marianne, I know that we've had this conversation a lot, and I think it was first ethical AI, then it's been responsible AI, it's been called trusted AI.
Yeah.
It's now, the latest is secure AI. So where do we stand?
Well, there's just a proliferation, isn't there? And a lot of the time it feels like the governments all around the place just feel like they need to do something. So that is something they can do, and so they start doing it. But I think it's in a way a distraction from what we should be doing and maybe what they should be helping us to do. And that is just, really understand this technology. It's just a bad idea to be introducing sort of laws in particular before you understand what you're actually dealing with. But the sort of frameworks for responsible or secure AI are, they're not really providing guidance for organizations that are actually building AI. There's no practical, it's hard to find practical translations. These frameworks are big. They feel like they're trying to boil the ocean instead of clearly identifying where the risk is, where the harms are, and what the opportunities may be to kind of measure the potential value that you can create. So I would like to see a lot more progress from companies like Microsoft, which is really at the frontier, of helping developers and organizations kind of take the next step to experiment, because it's very hard for an organization to build an AI strategy if they haven't really been able to get something working in practice and finding where they can get traction or what they can possibly learn. So to your answer, really, we have a long way to go.
So Chris, what are vendors doing? What can Microsoft do to help everybody navigate this whole new world?
Bit of everything. I think, look, I don't want this to be too Microsoft-centric, but I'll start with the Microsoft opinion and then I'll talk about the industry at large. Look, as Marianne pointed out, we have a lot of work to do and we recognise the challenge in front of us. So we take responsible AI very, very seriously to the point that we have independence right through the organisation. And what that means is, as we're developing new innovations, and there's no shortage of that, where we don't have the guardrails in place, where we're introducing new technology, which any technology change has positive and negative impacts, and where we don't think we've got the guardrails right or they're not ready, we're stalling that launch to market. So that's a huge part of it, having that independence from product and our sales teams. The other side of this is transparency. And we recognise there's a lot more to do, and we're spending a lot of time with our customers around this. As best we can, we're sharing how the technology works. What are the concerns that we have for customers introducing the technology into their operating environment, and increasingly providing guidance on where we don't think the technology is a good fit yet, i.e. either the regulatory landscape is not there yet, or the operational risk posture is not at an acceptable level yet. So really trying to educate customers on where not to use generative AI. And inversely, when you start to introduce this technology, where best to first apply it. And we'll come back to that, I think, in some of the future questions. But the quick summary there is, if there's one takeaway I'll leave everyone with, is start within your organisation. So the back office channels, the staff assisted channels, that's a really good internal fit, because the reality is your pre-existing operational risk models govern technology, and generative AI is yet another. Yes, there are additional considerations, but it doesn't fundamentally change how we govern technology introduction. So start within the organisation, build the mechanisms around that, understand the trade-offs, build your operational rhythms around introducing and managing that technology, how you're going to interact with your data sets, how we're responding to the ever-increasing legislation landscape, both here in Australia and globally. And once you get that right, then you can start to explore those inside-out channels, which is really where the heightened risk profile is.
Yeah. So, Craig, question for you. From a deployment perspective, how are you embracing the new technology and what are some of the challenges that you faced in taking an MVP to actually a fully productionised piece of AI?
Absolutely. I think I'm speaking to the right crowd here, so anyone in InsurtechLIVE will know the first bit of getting something, a proof of concept, a prototype, is in some cases quite easy. The hard work is then how do you actually integrate that into an organisation. So there's many things I could say about sort of the back-end engineering, and we're currently, we're partnering with Microsoft among others. We need to engineer some of these prototypes now to have low latency. We need to be considerate of the costs, because as you would know, whether it's token costs or whether you're running your own open source models on GPUs, these are not cheap. So a lot of effort is going into, as you scale these and have them as business critical, and lots of staff using them, how are you actually going to manage the costs, and you need to engineer and design the solution down for them. So I think two considerations around the scaling. I do want to sort of pick up on the risk piece, because it's not going to be any surprise that insurance executives are really waking up to the value of AI. But at the same time, they've heard all the stories around AI hallucinating, which is when AI confidently says something, but it's completely wrong. And other horror stories about automated decision-making systems being biased in the way they come out with an outcome, or chatbots that are being racist. So all of those are sort of playing in the back of their minds. And even though I think, as Chris has quite rightly said, the focus, certainly from our organisation, I think others reading through the press, is on back office automation, and then the assistance. The co-pilot concept of putting information in the hands of our staff is actually a low to moderate kind of risk posture to get started with. And insurance companies have been dealing with data, especially through pricing and marketing and fraud functions, for more than 20 years. So there are established models and processes, frameworks and guardrails around how do you actually manage AI model risk within an insurance company. The question for us now, I guess, is as we scale, as these things become business critical, and there are, the couple of unique things that generative AI does bring in terms of risk landscape, how do we actually start building those risk frameworks and getting them into a semi-automated process? Because as they scale, you're not going to have enough people to be checking these things. So you need a technology solution that aligns with essentially what your risk governance processes are across the organisation. One other challenge is with data privacy, and I guess anyone getting started with deploying generative AI across the organisation has to be thinking about that, because most of the proprietary models are going to have data leaving your organisation. So a few things to be thinking about. We're obviously working with our technology partners, because some kind of economic models are such that you actually use a proprietary model, but the data is never at rest. It never is used to train the model. You actually get a response back, and so those can be generated, and you actually set that up through your existing technology partners in a secure environment, and that's really good. Some organisations might be thinking about open source. They can download a model, have it running on their own kit, and that obviously means that no data is moving anywhere. Other organisations are thinking about redacting data, and so there are a couple of things that you should be thinking about when scaling. And of course, the ethical considerations is something where we're really, we've got AI steer codes now that are governing these kind of processes as we scale. I'll come back later on if we've got enough time around other challenges, because they're certainly around integrating into business processes. There's a number of gotchas that we need to look out for. But I'll hand back to you, otherwise I'll go on all day.
Well, it's music to my ears, because I focus now on risk, and I certainly believe that the only way to manage and monitor AI is with AI. And people kind of look at me and go, but it's AI monitoring AI, monitoring AI? I'm like, yes, that is what the new world is looking for. And that's actually what we need to do, because right to your point, you cannot manage risks around AI with people. It will be cost prohibitive. You will never get any value out of it. So when you're thinking about AI, you really also going to need to think about that risk lens. So Craig, I want to come back to your earlier one word, which was empowering, around that whole customer piece. So as an insurance customer, as AI starts to permeate insurance, what's in it for me?
Yeah, well, I think there's 5 things that I would rattle off. So if you're an insurance customer, and I think most of you would have insurance here and have had potentially frustrating interactions with your insurance company. So the first one is AI is going to, potentially, it's possible, theoretically possible, not with Suncorp, of course. We're excellent. So the idea about basically customer interactions. So we know that many people will have been on the phones, or just not able to get something done like a transaction that should be easy, but not being able to do that online, not being able to self-service. So AI is going to enable our digital channels to support customers in doing a lot more of their transactions without having to get on the phone. That's also going to mean that the future of the call centre, in my view, the high ground would be where the call centre agents are actually freed up from that transactional stuff. And so what they're focusing on, which is the best, what humans are best at, is being empathetic for people that have had sort of a traumatic accident, whether trees come through their house, whether they've had a nasty crash. That's when a reassuring voice on the phone, telling them what's the next steps and reassuring them they're going to be okay. That's kind of fantastic, where we actually want our call centre people to focus. But these other elements where you can self-service, AI is going to actually accelerate that. Chatbots will be able to talk around a lot more wider conversations and transact on your behalf. I think there's a couple of other things that back office, your claims, and these will take time obviously, but the promise is there and we're starting to see it. Claims resolution times will speed up. I would also call out that there's going to be less chance of having bad experience with an insurer if we get it right. And what I mean by that is that AI that's actually looking at all the interactions to try and understand, is somebody having a bad experience with us or about to, and sending an alert to a staff member to intervene, to resolve for good. One thing that would be resonating with everybody is clearly the efficiency benefits in a competitive market will flow through to, I won't say lower premiums, but I'd say as low as possible in terms of those benefits flowing through. And of course, as many people know, from a risk selection point of view, AI is going to increasingly improve the ability for the right premium to be given to you. So if you're a good risk, you won't be cross-subsidising other bad risks, you'll get the right premium at the right time. So they're just a couple of things where I really think the promise, obviously we need to get on and do it and execute, but that's where the promise of where AI would actually have benefits for the customer.
Yeah. So Libby, I'm going to come back to you because you're already benefiting the customer, but you're also a part of this whole solution for insurance, because for an insurer to do everything, that's not going to be possible. So the whole reason we're here at InsurtechLIVE is that you're all part of the solution as well. So just navigating the ecosystem. So when you're part of the insurance ecosystem, what's that like for a startup, and what have you learnt through your experience?
It's been interesting.
Great word.
So it's been difficult to really sell the value of something that's quite new and unknown. So basically we took an evidence-based psychological intervention that's normally delivered face-to-face, and we digitised it, and it's getting great value for our clients. But now with conversational AI, our chatbot's much more empathetic, even though you think they can't be, and can give 24/7 support to the insurer's customers. And so we're seeing that the value is just growing exponentially, because not only are they getting great outcomes, but they're also getting better NPS scores because their customers are happy, because they're feeling supported. And I've lost count of the number of users who've said to us, I'm really surprised that my insurer offered me this program, because insurers get such a bad rap normally from the general public. So I feel like we're in this really nice win-win situation at the moment. So it's interesting, but it's more pleasant.
Well, that's one part of, I think, the ecosystem where AI is coming in. But the other one, which I think is going to touch most people in sort of their everyday jobs, is the whole use of co-pilots. I've been to a few of the insurance events in the past few months, and pretty much every supplier of software is saying that they will have a co-pilot of some description already. Microsoft's last count was 15, 20?
I lose count myself.
You lose count. Last official number I had was 15. But Chris, tell us a bit more, what's happening with co-pilots and, how are they going to get used?
Wow, very open-ended question. I think, look, there's three elements of this. There's the ecosystem play, so increasingly, we see partnerships as key, right? We're a technology vendor, but we're not in the business of being domain experts in insurance, so we're working very significantly with ISVs in all markets, and we see that will continue to grow. And I call that second-party extension. So that's applied AI in an ecosystem. And Microsoft first party, I think a lot of people in the room will know about these, and there's no shortage of new innovation. And Satya Nadella, our global CEO, is really bullish on the opportunity. And without giving it all the roadmap away, you're just increasingly going to see more co-pilot integration natively. And the last quick anecdote I'll share there is, and I think this is the opportunity for customers and our ecosystem providers, not just Microsoft, but what I really get excited about is net new innovation. And I use the example, not to lead on Microsoft products, but I use the example of Security Copilot. And this particular product innovation came as a result of our challenge globally responding to the increasing threat landscape of cyber events. We have no shortage of more and more data signals, and more attack vectors. And we cannot scale that in terms of individual humans, processes, etc. So what I like about that, it's a really good example of how generative AI can help us with net new innovation, which actually results in increased in customer experience, but net new revenue streams. And coming back to customers in the ISV ecosystem, I think there's a very significant opportunity there to really tap into what's unique to each of you in the room and how you can leverage your unique IP and your domain expertise to potentially become a platform business. And that's what we're starting to see. We're just at the early onset of that. But this technology only got introduced, generally available in November 2020. So to see that already emerge in market, that's unprecedented. We haven't seen that type of rapid innovation in an ecosystem centric model. So that's what really excites me about the opportunity in front of all of us, and not just Microsoft first party, but the wider ecosystem.
Craig, I know you're part of the beta group and you've got co-pilots turned on. What's your experience been from a Suncorp perspective?
Yeah, so we've got 250 users in a co-pilot pilot. It's always a bit awkward to say. But so early days. So we haven't actually gone, you might have heard in the press, some people or organisations started to quantify benefits. We're not there yet. But certainly the early days are that where they've found Copilot the most kind of intuitive to use is actually in the task of summarising, and especially things like summarising meetings, through Microsoft Teams, Outlook and Word. They're not using at the moment, the Excel and the PowerPoint functions as much, but that will come. I think a couple of call-outs. So they've all been really happy with the team, the Microsoft team that's kind of empowered and trained them. And I think the next stage is really to try and help our users kind of open their mind around the much broader set of use cases and tasks they can use. I think that's some of the early feedback is that some people need a little bit of prompting in terms of what they can use this powerful tool set for. So, early days, but yeah, looking good. We're really excited to see where it goes from here.
Excellent. Now, I've got one more question I'm going to ask each of the panellists before we throw it open to the floor. So here's your 2 or 3 minute warning to come up with a question. There will be roving mics. There'll also be a QR code put up shortly so you can type your questions in as well. But we really wanted to make sure that, I got to choose what questions with a bit of help from them, but these are my questions, so I want to hear your questions. But before we get to those, I'm just going to ask each of the panel, and we'll go from Chris down. When everyone's going back into their organisations, if there was one thing that they should be thinking about or a question they should be asking, what would that be?
Where could we? And what I mean by that is, I think it's quite easy for us with any new technology innovation to come up with the why can't we use. So it's really changing that question, where could we use it, or where could we apply it, or where could we get benefit from?
Really good.
This isn't my answer, but I have a response to that. After you ask, what could we do, you definitely need to ask, what should we do?
Yeah.
But,
that was unplanned.
Yeah. So, but what I would like to see is just a lot more acceleration. We are not going fast enough, okay? So that's what you need to take back. We're not going fast enough. How can we go faster? And the main thing you need to focus on is building an AI innovation strategy and understanding where you can create value, such that if you did have a little prototype, it would be just like a hell yes. It's not like, will we or won't we or should we? It's like we're doing it. You've got to get after those applications that are just, no one can find a reason why not. And that requires using specific tools like we use to create startups, lean startup methods, build MVPs. You don't just focus on, what can the tech do that maybe you would like to do or couldn't do before, but you want to know, what is the business model? Are we getting the ROI that we would expect? What's our delivery channels? And so for that, you would use a tool like the Lean Startup Canvas. And I think everyone in this room, if you're not familiar with it, need to download it before you go to sleep tonight.
I would say, just based on my own personal experience in trying to sell into this market, just be less risk averse in sensible ways, obviously. But yeah, like Marianne said, you just need to take a leap. There are other markets like the UK and the US where they're much more open to innovative, disruptive ideas that they might not have quite seen before.
Well, I think just to build on, because I would agree with Chris's one, which is it's all got to start with a vision of where the value lies, because otherwise it's all just cool tech. And then how, whether we should, the risk framework and the ethical focus. So to build on that rather than repeating, I'd say then the other thing is, how do you actually set up, how can we do this, and how do you actually invest in the foundations so that when all of the plans come to fruition, you've actually got a solid technology foundation, and that's integrated with your business processes and your risk processes.
Yeah. Thank you. So the thing that I think you should also take back is just think about the people who are going to be impacted. So AI needs its own branding, it needs its own marketing, because you need to sell it to those people who are going to use it, who might be losing or changing their jobs because of it. So really make sure that you've covered that whole user experience and people aspect for both your customers and for your staff, because I think that is sometimes overlooked. We get too excited about the tech and the value it's going to be delivered, but it could be like the self-driving cars in San Francisco where the Uber drivers are putting out their cones there, because their jobs are being disrupted. But I think it's a great opportunity because we had the web, still got jobs. Before that we got typewriters, we moved to computers, people still have jobs. AI is just going to create a whole lot of new jobs and opportunities, and hopefully we get a 4-day working week.
Yeah, yes. That's a hell yes.
So I'm going to throw to the floor now. There's a couple of roving mics. So we have a question down the front. Nigel?
It's more of an observation than actually a question. My name's Antonio. I work at Lloyd's of London. Background is professional indemnity, directors and officers, and also some cyber. My question is that obviously it's such an exciting topic, AI. I mean, we're really looking at it from an insurance perspective. But I think one of the biggest challenges, and it's often overlooked, is that all of the producers of such tech and all the developers of such tech, like some of you on the stage, I envisage it's going to be very difficult, certainly in the infancy, to get adequate coverage for your liabilities. So as an AI developer or product of AI, you're going to find, similar to people that are involved in cryptocurrency, to find adequate insurance, because the difference with AI, obviously it's cutting edge, which from an insurance liability perspective makes people a bit nervous. Right? The insurance is pretty slow when it comes to covering liabilities of such developers, which can be a challenge for you. But I'm concerned with the fact that, and an observation for all you developers is to have a look at, if you are buying policies to cover you for your professional liabilities, it's likely that AI may well be excluded in the next couple of months, or certainly you're going to have to really make sure that your liabilities are going to be covered for it. And we've seen that from cryptocurrency, and people are now getting more comfortable with it as it is. But it's just a challenge there, and I'm quite interested to know how developers look at that in terms of you don't want such a thing to inhibit innovation and development, because it's going to have so many more benefits. But these are things that I think is worth having a look at when you do develop, and make sure that there is adequate coverage for you. Because, sorry, the difference with AI, obviously. Sure.
Yeah. So,
That's all right.
So
You wanna
one
take
way,
this one?
yeah, one way to answer that is, yeah, it's a massive challenge. It could just, make the world stop tomorrow, couldn't it? But it's a massive opportunity for InsurTech. This is where, understanding innovative methods and finding the unorthodox way of looking at a problem, not just falling into old patterns and seeing the world, the same. Wake up tomorrow, see it differently, and see these challenges as incredible opportunities. The same is, I've spoken in rooms full of lawyers, and all I hear is the billable hour is under threat. Oh my God. I know, okay, so you've heard it too. But what an opportunity if you're a lawyer. These new problems coming down the stream, they're here, they're banging on the door, and someone's going to have to solve them. Because this technology is not going away. It is way too powerful. And some people are saying, oh, well, it'll disappear tomorrow when the New York Times wins its legal case in the US. I mean, look at Google's books, copied every book ever written. There's no way this technology is going back in the box. And so I think that's a fair assumption. You can now move on to come up with, really cool, innovative ideas, and make sure Australia starts beating the UK and the United States in these little games we're playing.
There we go. And I know that, I've been using AI for 20 plus years. Maybe not generative AI, but certainly I think AI is there. But I really agree that understanding the introduction of AI risk that you're bringing into the organisation and what the financial costs would be, whether that's regulatory, hadn't thought about it through professional indemnity insurance, but I'm sure if you'll be crossing my desk soon, so I'll be looking out to see whether it is an exclusion. But I think it'll be interesting to see how people respond to that, and how you actually define AI in public liability as well. I think we've got time for one more question. No? I'm getting
it. It says 2 minutes.
It says 2 minutes.
We've got the next panel will kill us,
Okay.
I think. We'll get lynched.
So I want to thank you all. Thank you all for your attention this afternoon. I really want to thank the panel for generously giving up their time to be here. Some of us will be here afterwards, but otherwise, you've got all of our details. Feel free to reach out to any of us if you've got a particular burning question. We're always willing to answer. So again, if I can have a round of applause for the panel. Thank you, everybody.